A huge welcome to number 32 in the IoD99Bites series here at the IoD HQ on Pall Mall. Last week was an incredibly busy week for the IoD99 with socials across the country pulling together well over 400 99ers in 1 week to network, engage, support and do micro pitches as well. So if you're part of that, if you came along, great to see you. If you did a micro pitch, even better, top work. This week, slightly slower on the social side, but nonetheless incredibly busy on other activity. As always, I'm joined by my partner in crime, Jamie, who's going to give an insight on the policy side and a really key initiative which also you can be a part of to ensure your voice is heard in the corridors of power and by the powers that be, with individuals like Jamie who have the connections and have the influence, and they need the ammunition from you to get your voice heard. And as always, I'm joined by an awesome 99er. This week it is the turn of Jean-Philippe, who's going to give us an insight into his business, what he's doing on an incredibly interesting area as well. But I won't touch on that. I will leave that up to the big reveal for JP in a second. But Jamie, without further ado, Policy Voice, what is it? How do people engage? And what does it do?
Well, thanks very much, Alex. Well, as Alex was saying, the IoD is really, really lucky to have a great voice, both in the media nationally and internationally, but also in the corridors of power on the issues that matter to businesses and kind of wider economic policy as well. But we can't have that voice without constant feedback from IoD members. It's the single most useful thing that we have and tool that we have in our arsenal as a policy unit serving IoD members. And in order to get that feedback, we do a lot of various roundtables and events across the country, but on a monthly basis as well, we have what we call our Policy Voice panel. Now, this is a survey panel. We survey around 2,500 members every single month on issues ranging from wider economic confidence about the kind of shape of the economy and your faith and your outlook for your own organization over the year. We also look at a bit of blue sky thinking around what business policy is going to look like a few years down the line and try and anticipate how we can help government put in place the safeguards to make sure that there's a really robust business community in the UK. But we also react to events that are kind of ongoing and big events that hit unexpectedly into the business cycle that we can then feed back IoD member opinions into government and into the news in a kind of immediate way. Over the past few years, that's been related to anything around Brexit. Obviously, transition went top of the government's agenda after sustained pressure from the IoD and other business groups, and this is down this is down in no small part to the feedback that we had from IoD members about putting transition right up there at the top of the agenda. This month, for instance, we've got a survey out. It's open for a few more days on GDPR preparedness, and we will be taking the results of that directly into government to see that in the last month before GDPR comes into force, and it is the single biggest regulation really to hit British businesses in a long time, to make sure that the government are putting in place all of the resources they can to help small businesses and SMEs in particular be ready for that before it comes in. So these are really relevant, very, very important questions that we're asking, and the results are taken right into the heart of government and are heard at the heart of government as well and within the media. So it's a plug this week from me to you to join Policy Voice and help us kind of keep up the level of pressure that we do on policymakers. It's really, really important.
Brilliant, Jamie. Thank you so much. If you haven't heard of GDPR, you should do. Get yourself clued up. Check out the IoD Hub around that issue. If you haven't heard about it, you would have almost undoubtedly got emails about it from organisations in which you're signed up to, asking whether or not they can keep emailing you and how they use their data. It is a very, very important area, as Jamie touched on. Policy Voice, it's free, it is fantastic, it is really great. They have got the influence, they have got the impacts, they have got the political targets in their sights. They just need, as I said, the ammunition from yourself to make sure that they can go in there and bat on your behalf. We had over 150 99ers signed up to Policy Voice. It would be amazing if we could get even more 99ers signed up over the next few months. And we'll be running specific policy-focused competitions within that as well for 99ers. So congratulations to the winners who are off to the Viva Tech Summit in Paris next month. It is going to be a fantastic few days, and that was thanks to Policy Voice and the policy team for pulling that together. So Jamie, massive thanks on that side. Now, on to the individual that is running a business and creating wealth for the economy and feeling some of these issues that policy focus on. JP, over to you.
Thank you very much, Alex and Jamie. So maybe would you like me to introduce a little bit
That'll be great. Who you are, what you do, what your business does.
So I'm Jean-Philippe Perrault. I'm the director of NED On Board. NED On Board is a professional body for non-executive director and board member listed on gov.uk. I am also non-executive director of a medical company. So what we do in practice, we connect, we train, we inform our non-executive director community. So on average, our community has between 5 and 20 years board experience. So like the IoD, we organize events. We had one last week in Edinburgh, this week in London, around different topic. It was around risk committee. The next one will be in June. It will be about digital in the boardroom, which is a hot topic currently. So we are a professional network for the non-executive director community.
Jean-Philippe, thank you very much. Now, before we started this video, we were talking about some key sectors. Now, obviously, if you're entering as an NXT within a business environment or you're becoming a director, there's a hope that you'll understand some of the board governance issues that you're going to face, and governance being an incredibly important area from a policy standpoint and a training standpoint for yourself and IoD through the professional development services here. But I run my own charity. I sit on as a trustee on another charity, and in the past I've been a school governor. These are some areas where people don't quite understand the regulatory issues they need to be aware of and the governance issues. And from a policy standpoint, the ID's battered fairly heavily on the need for strong governance within charities as well. Jamie, do you want to give an insight on that side? And then, JP, if we come over to you on that side and give your view on that.
Well, it's all, I think, one of the big high-profile governance issues or governance events that we saw around the charity sector in the last few years was the collapse of Kids Company and the question marks over directors of that and whether or not they had given the time and energy and the kind of safeguarding that they needed to that charity. And it raised wider questions around professional qualifications for charity directors and people sitting on the boards of charities, because essentially, these people are giving up their time in order to do philanthropic work and work on behalf of others. They're giving up their expertise, and now we hear a big part of the debate is to say, at the same time as you giving up your time, we also want to make sure that you have robust qualifications and that you are in a position where you can meet the standards that are expected of you to the highest possible level, which is obviously quite tough when you're asking people to give up their time. You're also asking them to give up a lot of potential investment in trying to get themselves professionally qualified to sit on charity boards as well, and that can be a massive disincentive to some people, to the amount of investment, personal investment they have to put into it, as well as being relatively philanthropic and sitting on those boards. So I think there's a real question over how can you increase the quality of governance in charities if you need to. And in specific charities, obviously, many charities are very, very well governed, and you're always looking at a small subset with this kind of thing. But how can you increase, to some extent, the quality of governance on charities without disincentivizing people to join those boards in the first place and give up their time and their energy? And I think that's a big challenge. I'm not sure anyone's really come up with a good response yet.
And Jamie, it's actually an excellent point. I mean, at NED On Board, what we do, we provide a clear path to access the board of a charity, of a listed company, but also to ensuring when they are at the board, they are effective at what they do. So we had a conversation, actually, we have our own board meeting yesterday, and it's a very, very important point. This is the two pieces of the same equation. So some people have to give their time to ensure the charity is in line with the mission, but at the same time, there is their own house. I mean, if the charity is in trouble, the non-executive director or the trustee is liable for that. So as an organization, we support and we provide the insurance for this kind of risk, for example. And you need to ensure that in substance, governance, it's ensuring people do the right thing and the executive team is in line with what it's supposed to do. And if they are not, the framework of the governance should be able to replace them. So the mission of the company is always going on. But how do you find the right incentive? I mean, maybe it's slightly controversial, but one of the things we have seen, sometimes some very good executive brings an executive mindset to the board of the charity and try to make the charity move in one direction or another, instead of having just this role of critical friends, as we call it, for trustee and for non-executive director, and to act as a team effort. And this is how you get the best operation within the boardroom, when you have this different background, different set of value, I would say, this diversity we talk about. So this is the two pieces of the equation, really. So ensuring the charity can bring good executive within their board, but also that those people that give their time and their expertise are supported.
Yeah, and as Jamie said, you know, it's important to ensure that the majority of charities are run effectively and have strong governance in place. It tends to be a small detail. But it's the same with schools as well. It isn't just about diversity of focus, but it's diversity of skill sets. When I was a governor of a school, you know, we were a relatively small school, but the overall operating budget of the school was not insignificant. It was, you know, well into a number of seven figures. But when you looked at the skill set of the board and the governors on the board, there were certain in my view, certain significant skill sets that were lacking. And it's a tough area, again, isn't it? You know, to ensure we're attracting the right skills, we're enabling people to be trained up. Because ultimately, we need to make sure these organisations, charities, schools, have the right skill sets to operate effectively and ask the right questions.
Yeah, I think this question of the diversity is kind of absolutely key within the governance debate right now. Right? So we've seen over the last few years big reviews into increasing gender diversity on boards. We saw the Davis review and the targets of 30% women on boards. We've seen increasingly as well a sort of government focus on trying to increase the number of people from ethnically diverse backgrounds on boards as well. And there is a real push in that area as well. But I think what we see, particularly in the startup and in emerging sectors as well, is a lot of the board directors that are out there are people with a lot of experience, obviously, then tend to be a little bit older, and they tend to have the kind of professional qualifications to sit on those boards. And what we don't necessarily see, and which we see is in the FTSE 100 as well, particularly, is a diversity of age on boards as well. But of having more young people joining big boards of big listed companies or very, very rapidly growing companies, to make sure that their background and the skill set of younger people is really reflected in the way that companies are governed. And so that kind of diversity of age on board issue has not really sort of made its way into the kind of into the governance debate as much as it should yet. But it is absolutely fundamental. It's particularly fundamental with emerging sectors where the majority of the skills are in generations that are now kind of reaching professional maturity as well. So I think it's an interesting point, and I'm not sure how you create a sort of environment where people are beginning to take more younger people onto boards.
I mean, Jimmy, this is an excellent point. I mean, one of the reasons we exist, I would say, is to provide this safe environment for our non-executive director to share and exchange their ideas. And on this question of diversity, we actually have Dennis Wilson, who was involved in the Davis review and that produced a document for more women into the board. But it's only answered part of the equation. We also received the chairman of the FRC on this specific topic that we had during one of our events. And his approach with share was we need to look in diversity in terms of a difference of set of background and value. So he go far beyond the gender difference. He go up to the point of ethnical, about history, cultural background. So
and professional as well.
Professional as well. I mean, one of the things a conversation actually I had with an experienced non-executive director, and she was sharing with me these things when the topic of the digital transformation arises. Nobody in the boardroom is really well prepared for it, and it's why? Because everybody would like to have Mark Zuckerberg. I don't know if Mark Zuckerberg is the best example right now, but I mean someone from a digital background, experience to be part of the mission and to ensuring the company is doing what they're supposed to do. So this is This is a very important topic, and maybe if I can share it with you, I mean, for NED on board, we're also very proud to have in our advisory board someone who's come from the bottom 1% in end, and she make her way up. She's relatively young. She built her own business, and she also bring a lot of in terms of awareness of all the stakeholders, I would say. So this diversity, it's very important.
Yeah.
If I may add a point, Alex, on what you say about school governor, one of the things we have seen also in the boardroom, it's sometimes to answer a specific problem, people will ask some consultant to come back. But the issue with that, it's the consultant have their own agenda. So if you manage to bring non-executive director with the right skill set, so for example, as a school governor, a bit of financial background or accountant background, on the example you took, you're pretty sure that the school will get a better outcome or the way it's going to manage this specific issue. So it's a good point.
JP, thank you very much indeed, an incredibly important topic. Jamie, as always, thank you very much for sort of providing the IoD brains into the conversation as well. This is an important topic for the boards or the charity boards I've sat on, and I should say the school I sat on as well was incredibly well run and is doing really well at the moment. But for me, it's all about creating the right conversations and having diversity of people, diversity of skill sets on those boards. They will create the conversations that can be discussed. I've always found it's quite fascinating when you've got companies that are selling to a certain demographic or a certain group that don't have that group represented on their board. You do wonder how are they able to talk as a board around their actual customer base. But thank you so much again, JP. Thank you so much, Jamie. Sign up to Policy Voice. It is an excellent initiative. Your voice will get heard. You get invited to some amazing events, and we're going to be running a lot more competitions within it as well for 99ers who take part regularly in the surveys. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great week.